You've been putting it off, but it's here. Time to go to the dentist again. It's certainly not your favorite thing to do, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And you don't want to run into any expensive problems just because you skipped a checkup. Besides, your dentist is pretty nice. So you go and sit in the chair and promise that you'll floss more and awkwardly wonder how you're supposed to answer questions when their hands are in your mouth. You know, the usual routine. But then, something different happens. The dentist comes back with an x-ray, points at a dark spot, and says you'll need 2 or 3 procedures to get your teeth in good condition. You're shocked. Your teeth didn't even hurt. But you figure the person who went to dental school knows best. You let them do some drilling, take more x-rays, and schedule a follow-up appointment to fix your teeth. Little did you know, the dentist was actually breaking your teeth. And not only your teeth. This was a routine he'd practiced thousands of times. Why would a dentist intentionally break people's teeth? Dr. Paco Major, a dentist in Jackson, Wisconsin, first became interested in dentistry when he was a boy. His mother had serious oral health problems and saw dentist after dentist, hoping that one of them could help. Finally, she found someone who figured out the cause of her issues, treated her, and completely changed her life. Seeing this transformation inspired Paco to learn more about dentistry, and he earned his Doctor of Dental Surgery in order to help patients the way his mother's dentist had. In January 2019, Paco bought a dental practice called Jackson Family Dentistry. It had been operated by dentist Dr. Scott Charmoli and his wife Lynn Charmoli. They ran the business together for over 27 years. Scott was the only dentist in the office, and after the transition of ownership, he continued to see patients for 8 months to complete ongoing treatments and make sure no one felt forgotten. What a great person, right? After Scott left, Paco familiarized himself with the new practice, patients, and past patient files. While randomly reviewing records, something odd stood out to him. Do you want to watch your favorite new TV shows like Goth Tuesday or The Last of Us, but every time you try, you get the same unavailable in your country error? Well, look no further than this video's sponsor, NordVPN, for all your browsing and streaming needs. With NordVPN, find sales on video games without being region restricted, get local ticket pricing for fulfilling your dream travel plans, and watch movies and shows that are geo-restricted in your country, all with one little click. It's the VPN with the strongest anti-malware and has over 5,300 servers across multiple countries worldwide. NordVPN encrypts your online activity without slowing anything down, so your ISP can't screw with your browsing and streaming speeds. Now I can watch Goth Tuesday solve mysteries with her best friend Wolf Rainbow, or follow Joe and Elliot as they travel across America to find a cure for the Great Mushroom Curse. Get NordVPN's 2-year plan and a bonus gift at nordvpn.com/brew. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/brew to get a bonus month free of charge. Now, let's get back into it. While randomly reviewing records, something odd stood out to him. Scott had performed a lot of crown procedures. Like, a lot. This operation, where a dentist replaces a damaged or missing part of a tooth with a cap, wasn't that common. On average at the time, Wisconsin dentists attached fewer than 6 crowns per 100 patients. But Scott's number was over 32 per 100 patients. He'd given his patients more crowns than 95% of dentists in his state. Paco was alarmed and suspicious. Why would Scott need to install so many crowns? And why were some x-rays taken after the initial visit? It looked like Scott had been over-treating people. The top priority of doctors should be the health and safety of the people in their care, and they swear an oath to do no harm to their patients. Paco reported the activity to the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services, as well as the U.S. Department of Justice. Hopefully, it was nothing more than an unusually high rate of people needing crowns. Unfortunately, Paco's suspicions were dead on. In December 2020, the Department of Justice indicted Scott on several counts of healthcare fraud and false statements. Not such a great guy after all. The entire scheme began to reveal itself. Jackson Family Dentistry had been operating like a regular dental practice until the office moved to a larger location. Around that time, Scott consulted with marketing experts and decided the business needed to sell more services. Many more procedures were pushed, schedules were tighter, and the patient-to-staff ratio shot up. A former assistant, Bailey Bayer, said the practice went from busy to extremely busy, and dental procedures became a sales pitch instead of an honest recommendation for treatment. Scott would show a patient an X-ray of a healthy tooth but point to a line or spot and say it was a sign of decay or a fracture that needed a crown. This happened to one man, Todd Tedeschi, who visited Scott and was surprised to hear that he needed 2 crowns at once. His teeth didn't even hurt, but he went along with it because he trusted the professional. After showing the X-ray, Scott performed some drilling and took an additional X-ray. Bailey noticed this and thought it was odd, but Scott waved her away and told her that he used to work at an insurance company and that they would want to see the new X-ray. Of course, what Scott was really doing while drilling was breaking people's teeth. The second X-rays were sent to people's insurance companies to make it seem like the patient came in with that level of damage. The scam was incredibly effective. He went from making $1.4 million and doing 434 crowns to pulling $2.5 million and performing over 1,000 crowns just 1 year later. All in all, Scott applied for over $4 million to insurance companies and had received most of it. By the end of 2020, he was worth almost $7 million and had luxury vacation homes in Wisconsin and Arizona. But thanks to Paco, he didn't get away with it. After the activity was brought to the attention of authorities, Scott's dental license was suspended and he was charged in court. Prosecutors said that Scott, quote, abused a position of trust and lied to his patients and their insurers simply to line his own pockets, and that, despite already having many advantages in life, Mr. Charmoli simply wanted more, and he was willing to harm his patients physically, emotionally, and financially to fund his lifestyle. After a 4-day trial, Scott was found guilty of healthcare fraud and making false statements related to healthcare matters. He was sentenced to 54 months of incarceration in July 2022. He is also the subject of medical malpractice lawsuits brought by almost 100 of his former patients. It seemed like it was very easy for Scott to get away with what he did, which makes you wonder, how common is dental fraud? Unfortunately, it's very difficult to know how widespread dental scams are. There are different techniques practices could use to increase revenue. An office could, for example, advertise free cleanings and exams, but then intentionally overestimate the amount of dental work needed and the prices. Sometimes, dentists also have quotas of how many procedures they must do per month, so they lean towards overtreating in order to make the quota. The most common pattern of fraud happens when a patient visits a new dentist for a checkup, then is told they need a lot of work done when not that much treatment is truly required. Replacing old silver fillings is another way to mislead patients. Though fillings can crack or have decay around them, some dentists try to replace all the fillings simply due to age. They might say the old silver fillings leach out mercury, a claim that has no evidence. Other procedures that aren't always necessary include veneers, fluoride treatments, night guards, and adult sealants. If the shape of the tooth is good, bleaching is a cheaper alternative to veneers that often works perfectly fine. As for fluoride, most people get it in drinking water and from toothpaste, and fully formed adult teeth don't benefit much from the treatment unless you get a lot of cavities. Night guards are only needed if there's a lot of wear on the teeth or TMJ pain. Everyone wears down on their teeth eventually, but not everyone needs a night guard, yet some practices recommend them as part of their ordinary routine. And if an office prescribes a lot of dental sealants for adults, it's worth taking a closer look. Sealants can be a good option to protect enamel, especially for kids that get a lot of cavities, but some dentists over-recommend them. If the teeth aren't at high risk of decay, the tooth actually gets weakened when it's worked on in order to adhere the sealant. In America, dentistry has much less oversight than any other area of medicine, so it's easier to take advantage of people. Dental insurance plans are also designed in a way that rewards dentists for overprescribing and allows bad ones to abuse the system. According to one retired dentist, it's like being given a blank check. But it can be difficult to tell between an honest recommendation and one that's an attempt to get more money because dentistry is very subjective. Two honest dentists can disagree about things like whether a fissure needs a filling and how aggressive or conservative to be in treatment. However, there are some cases so extreme that it's no question the dentist was being dishonest. William Duff was one of the best-paid dentists in Glasgow, Scotland during the early 90s. He earned over £1 million in this time, and around 50% of his income was from installing crowns. The national average was 16%. Over a period of just 2 years, William fitted patients with over 5,000 crowns. He charged 70 patients a total of over £12,000 of unnecessary work in 3 years. His method of overtreatment included extracting teeth, crowns and fillings that weren't needed, and root canals. One patient got 3 crowns and a root canal even though they had nearly perfect teeth. But the worst thing was that William failed to sterilize the equipment at his practice, exposing his patients to blood infections like HIV. Over 1,000 former patients were tested by the NHS board, and fortunately, none of them had HIV or hepatitis B. One patient, Moan Russell, led the charge against William. After being treated at his office, she suffered from abscesses, developed 3 tumors in her face, was forced to have teeth removed, and even still had a piece of broken dental tool buried in her gums. To repair the damage caused by William, she faces fees of up to £100,000. Other dentists in Glasgow were astounded at the amount of traffic in William's practice, but were given the explanation that he was just a good businessman. Little did they know, William had already been the subject of complaints at his former office, but these issues weren't passed on when he moved his practice. After 3 years of fraud, William was brought down when patients came together to complain to health officials. He was fined £1,500 by the local health board and taken off the National Health Services list, but still able to work privately for a couple of years. Finally, after 16 allegations of misconduct were made, the General Dental Council removed him entirely. These accusations were only the tip of the iceberg. The campaign against William, led by Moan, collected 228 complaints. William pled guilty to culpable and reckless conduct as well as fraud, and the court heard about how he increased his revenue by claiming NHS payments for unnecessary work on patients. He was sentenced to 3 years of jail time, later reduced to 2 years after an appeal. In possibly one of the worst single cases of having a dentist from hell, the patient was Todd Dean, a tree trimmer in Australia. He was working as an apprentice for his company when the trees started fighting back. A small log hit his jaw one day during work, chipping Todd's teeth. He rinsed his mouth with salt water and spat out some tooth chips and blood, but kept on working. Later, when the pain in his mouth and teeth hadn't gone away, he told his boss about it and went to see a dentist, Dr. Mark Phung. Over the next year and a half, Mark treated Todd over 53 visits and performed root canals on every single one of his teeth, 28 root canals. Mark charged the employer's insurance company a total equal to $66,000 US. In just one bill, he charged $26,000 for work performed in only 2 sessions. In reality, Todd suffered limited damage to a small number of otherwise healthy teeth. But because of Mark, Todd got all his teeth fitted with metal crowns, multiple root canals, and bridging. His employer, Advanced Arbor Services, sued Mark in court for his destructive dental work. Dental experts testified the work was so poorly performed that the crowns and bridges trapped food, caused mouth infections, and would all need to be replaced. It took 50 consultations to try to repair the damage. Experts also said that the entire job was a complete case of fraud, and that the most Todd could have expected was root canal therapy on 3 teeth. Instead, every nerve, artery, and vein within every tooth was amputated. Todd had permanent disability concerning his mouth and would need maintenance for the rest of his life. The treatment was deemed so far below proper professional standards as to be grossly negligent. Mark was ordered to pay over 345,000 Australian dollars, and Todd took up a separate case against the dentist with the Supreme Court. In that case, Todd won, and the court ordered Mark to pay $1,743,000 to account for all the damage. Incredibly, throughout all the legal cases, Mark was still registered as a dentist and actively practicing. The dental tribunal found him guilty of misconduct, but they didn't revoke his license. But because of his debts from the court-ordered payments, Mark eventually filed for bankruptcy. These dentists are definitely scary, and after learning about them, it's easy to understand why some people are scared of dentists. Market research platform Dentavox did a survey of 18,000 people around the world, and 61% of the respondents said they were afraid of the dentist. 39% of them are afraid of the pain, while others, 24%, didn't like the smell of chemicals and the sound of the drill. A smaller percentage of people, 21%, were scared of being stuck in the dental chair and having to keep their mouth open for a long time. Finally, 5% said that their biggest fear was getting the bill. How much is dental fear associated with the fear of the cost? In a National Health Interview survey, 4 out of 10 adults say cost is the main reason they don't go to the dentist when they have an issue. Cost and lack of coverage has a significant correlation with poor oral health in America, where people with Medicaid are 5 times more likely to have poor oral health as adults with private coverage. The typical cost of a procedure like a crown is very inaccessible, and insurance might cover just 50% if the treatment is medically necessary. The price changes depending on things like the material of the crown, size, location, tooth condition, local rates, and the dentist's experience. Porcelain fused to metal crowns can range from $500 to $1,000 per tooth, while metal gold alloy crowns go for $600 to $2,500 each. And all porcelain crowns will cost anywhere from $800 to $3,000. There might also be other charges, like for an exam and x-rays. The price for a root canal could be $300 to $1,500 for a front tooth and $500 to $2,000 for molars. It's easy to see why going to the dentist causes a lot of stress, especially if you're worried someone might be overtreating you. So, how do you find a good, honest dentist? The most common answer is to ask your friends and coworkers about their experiences. Other options include asking a local dentist society or asking your doctor who they see. If you're really unsure, you can even try going to a consultation at a clinic in a dental school. The work might be slow and the hours are limited, but the cost is inexpensive and the work is generally very high quality because there is a huge amount of oversight. Every diagnosis is checked by several students and professors. Plus, contrary to what people may think about dental school students, they perform quality work by the time they're looking at actual patients after learning on models. While these stories may worry you, the majority of dentists are professionals with your best interests at heart. Still, be aware of red flags and don't be afraid to ask questions or get another opinion. As long as you remember those 2 things, your tooth things will be safer for it. Remember, go to nordvpn.com/brew to get NordVPN's 2-year plan and an additional bonus gift, all risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.